Well, good afternoon, everyone on the East Coast, good morning on the West Coast, and good evening to all of our European friends, especially the ones we just recently met at the Spark of Change conference. Welcome to AVX Live. I'm Joe Gilderson, President of Corporate Audiovisual Services, and today marks our second episode. And we're looking forward to a great discussion with another industry partner. Every day here at Corporate AV, we focus on three things: experience, success, and results. These three words are really at the heart of everything that we do and our entire thought process when we're planning an event. It doesn't matter if it's virtual or a hybrid or in person. The way we look at it is AV and technology are supposed to create positive experiences. They're supposed to be successful in helping you reach your goals, and they're supposed to leave behind measurable results. So part of why we're doing this AVX Live series is so that we can connect with professionals across all different industries and see how they're using technology and AV in their day-to-day and their professional and their personal lives. It's really about the impact and the experience, and that's why we're AVX. So since we're just getting started on this platform, normally I have somebody to help me out with my technology, but I still think I can do some of these things. But we're on Facebook and we're on YouTube, and as the kids would say, let's smash that subscribe button. Now, I know I'm a little too old to say that, but we have a lot of millennials that work with us, so I got to try to stay current sometime. Either way, let me tell you a little bit about who we're going to have on today, because we're really very fortunate. I'd like to welcome Mr. Robert Sanders. He's the founder and managing partner of Hospitality Resource Group. Robert founded HRG 25 years ago and has worked with clients all across the country. HRG specializes in the corporate and nonprofit sectors, which is one of the reasons we know them very well. But prior to HRG, Robert had worked with Marriott Hotels and Resorts for 15 years on top of that. So we're very fortunate to have someone who has over 40 years of hospitality and event industry experience. I mean, how much better can you get than that, right? Mr. Sanders chairs the Hospitality Sector Partnership for Westchester County. He's on the board of the Westchester Hotel Association, and is a past president of MPI Greater New York. Robert also sits on the Workforce Development Board, as well as the Hudson Valley Economic Development Corporation. He's very active in volunteerism and community affairs, and is someone that I've worked with for the last 12 to 14 years on virtual, hybrid, and in-person events. Honestly, he's even spoken at one of our special training events for all of our technical staff, and he was excellent there as well. So I think this is going to be a great experience for everybody, because Robert is a true events and hospitality person. Please welcome our friend and colleague, Robert Sanders. Mr. Sanders, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Joe. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it very much.
Well, that's good. That's good. I see you everywhere, but I got to tell you, the very first thing that I notice when I look in your background is that New York Giants helmet. And I mean, what channel you're on today, right? I mean, if we go like right over here, you see a Patriots sign. So, I mean, I don't know what happened. How do we end up with Giant stuff around here?
I know, but I still like the Patriots, so it's my number 2 team. So we're okay. We're okay.
All right, just don't tell me that that's a David Tyree helmet, okay?
It is not. It's an Eli Manning helmet, so that should be clear.
All right, well, Eli's pretty good. I mean, he really is the only guy who's ever beat Tom Brady, so.
Nice.
And he's a nice guy on top of that.
Absolutely.
So that's pretty good. But it does bring me to one quick thought. The 2007 Patriots, which is better, but
yeah.
But either way, a little helmet catch along the way is pretty good.
It doesn't hurt.
Well, good. Hey, let's just jump right into it.
Sure.
I mean, you've been doing this for a long time. Hospitality, event management. I mean, anything associated with it, I'm sure you've done at some point in your career. But I know that the last year has been as traumatic for you as it has been for us and all of our friends in the event and the hospitality industry. But that being said, how have you used audiovisual and technology, and how have they impacted your day-to-day life since all this happened?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and obviously, no one expected this to happen. I remember having our discussions together, you and I and the team, back in March, even in April, thinking, well, this is going to pass very quickly, and we're going to be okay and back into our normal world. And obviously, that in fact did not happen. We're coming up on a year, which is really quite extraordinary when you think about it. But technology has played a huge role, because we had to really take a step back and really pivot towards, okay, what do we do now? Right. And that was a very hard thing to do. And technology literally saved the day. I mean, we're all doing 1,000 Zooms a day, and that's become now commonplace in our world. But back 8, 9, 10 months ago, it was really just kind of coming to the forefront. And, with the, live events literally just stopping, the big conversation was for our clients, and we were on many calls together, you and I, is like, well, what do we do? Do we cancel? Do we postpone? Do we, do we shift to something different? And that's where the technology platform came into play, right? It's like coming in and saying, well, we have to adapt and pivot. And one of the things that we really thought were really important to our clients was don't cancel it, just do something different. So there was a big educational process there with our clients saying, listen, here's what virtual actually means. And we've done virtual for a long time, but not as much in the nonprofit sector, of course, on that arena. But really the education piece for our corporate and nonprofit clients saying, well, listen, there is a viable option here to do that. And how do we engage the audience? Which is, again, that was the biggest question we always had, is how do you engage the audience with a virtual event? And the other challenge obviously would be, a live event, you might have a 3 to 4 hour footprint. Or if it's a conference, it might be a 1.5 to 2 day footprint. Now you're compressing that down to a 1 hour virtual event. Or maybe if it's a conference, maybe you have a 3-day run of, say, 2 hours a day, something like that. So that's a big challenge to kind of bring that down, but also, again, getting that engagement. And of course, getting the right audience to participate in all that. And if you're in the nonprofit space, of course, the next question was, how do you raise money? How do we go and continue getting dollars into our nonprofit organization, whether you're a large organization or small, regardless, it's the same exact conversation. We have to raise money. It's already been budgeted for, right? No one saw this coming. Obviously coming into 21, there was a lot more opportunity to budget for the downslide of COVID and what that means. But in 20, when it all happened, we didn't know that. So, but technology has played a huge role there and has delivered amazing results to our clients.
Well, I mean, that's pretty amazing to hear. I mean, the fact that you were able to turn so quickly is really a testament to that. I mean, how do you think it's been as far as relationship-wise with your clients? I mean, they were all just as afraid, I'm sure, as you and I were when all this happened, right? So
yeah.
How do you think tech kind of helped you keep your relationships?
Yeah, it's an important piece. I mean, obviously, the relationships that we had prior, we built on that, right? So we said, we've been doing events with you for 7 years, 8 years, 10 years, trust us. We know what we're doing. We walk them through. We, as you know, layered on another 40 brand new clients, over the course of that year, whatever it might be. And we had to build relationships from that standpoint. But I think one thing was really very helpful is every time we did an event and it was successful, we can build on that momentum and show them, okay, here's a success story, right? We just did this last week, same footprint as you guys have, and it really does work. So, but technology has helped that significantly. We can show that to them. We can show them the tangible results. Here's the video footprint. Here's the storyboard. Here's the website. Here, all that type of thing is a tangible thing they can look at.
No, it makes sense, right? It's a different space. It's a different venue.
Yeah.
But you're still bringing people together. You're still connecting with people. And I guess we're just using different tools to do it, right?
Exactly correct. Exactly correct.
Well, just to kind of piggyback on that, how is it that, the clients have adapted to the technology? I mean, has it worked for them?
Yeah, they're adapting more now. And obviously the clients that we had in the spring, a lot more difficult because their event was supposed to be in May and it's now March, and we're looking at, okay, changing the entire format. So the adaptability for those clients was not as forthcoming, for sure, no doubt. It was more of a a come to reality conversation. Like, you really don't have a choice, right? You're not allowed to do the event. So, but coming to the fall, when they started seeing some results and seeing other nonprofits do their virtual events and say, hey, I like that. And hey, that looks successful. And the video was terrific. And on a corporate side, we did several conferences that people took a look at and say, hey, I really did learn. I really did engage, so we had that to kind of use in our corner to have them do different things. But it was really simply it was a recognition of no choice. If you want to do an event, it has to be done virtually. Now, that's changing a little bit now, of course, which we'll talk about, but it's adapting was what they had to do. And a lot of it as well in the nonprofit space was driven from like the board of directors and such, saying, listen, we shouldn't do this. We're not sure what it is. How do we actually engage our customers, being donors in that case, so that was a lot of the pushback came from the board. A lot of the executive directors and director of development, they saw the vision and they saw the opportunity to, raise awareness and raise communications and market the organization, stuff like that. But the folks behind the scenes were a lot more, hesitant to take that leap of faith.
Well, I guess that's where your role really became very important for them, right? As like their tour guide of this new frontier.
No doubt. And a lot of our clients asked me to speak to the board. And I probably spoke to 20 different organizations where I came in as the outsider, quote unquote, saying, here's a different perspective I can bring to you. I understand your concern. I understand that you have trepidation about going and doing something like this, but let me tell you why it can work. And more importantly, why and how you can be a part of it, being the board or, like a fundraising committee, or if it's a corporate side, like a training committee, whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
Like if they engage themselves, they can have a significant impact. So once they saw that, they were like, hey, you know what? I really can impact this event and have a positive outcome on it.
Well, it's interesting that you do that, because I don't think there's a lot of event planners that usually go to speak to the board. You know what I mean? Like that's just not a very typical role for an event planner. So how did you get involved in doing that in the first place?
Yeah, we've been doing that for a long time. Certainly, there are a lot of event planning, organizations out there, and but we're, HRG, our model is really more about community and more about being part of the organization. Again, our model is long-term clients. For us to come in and do an event for one time, 1 year, it's not beneficial. We want to be there for 5, 6, 8, 10 years, right? Get to know the organization. They get to know us. They get to build that level of trust, right? That's the big thing from our perspective.
Yeah.
And it also allows us to really talk at a different level, and, a lot of organizations will come in and they'll actually have me talk to several board members kind of offline, to kind of realign where they're coming from and such, which again, we're always glad to do. But from our standpoint, it just differentiates us from other event companies, right? We are very much part of that organization. And, as things start coming in, then it's a benefit to HRG. But from a referral standpoint, that's why I put my time and effort into it, is I'm now talking to 20 other people that I wouldn't necessarily have access to. And you think about these boards, a lot of folks in these board directors are high-level business executives that I'm now talking to them. And I've booked hundreds of pieces of business from that, just being exposed to the board at a different level. So that's why we really work on that. But at the end of the day, it's really effective. And they do listen, because sometimes, with an executive director or CEO, you hear this all day long and you say, yeah, I hear you. And you don't really listen to it. When you have a different perspective, sometimes it does push that needle forward.
No, I agree. But I think it's driven by the whole thought process, right? Because you're thinking about long-term clients right away.
Yeah.
It's not a quick hit, and it's not, it came into the hotel and then it's out tomorrow, who cares? Like that's just not the perspective that you're taking to the table.
Exactly.
And it makes complete sense, because we have a very similar paradigm, and we do a lot of things we look at it as a customer for life kind of thing. You make adjustments as needed because you're thinking long-term.
Exactly.
Not just tonight or today.
Exactly. Like when I work with Marriott, I was the director of catering at the Marriott Marquis in Midtown Manhattan, and we were transactional. We did
Absolutely.
events, we did events for, we did the daytime Emmy Awards, and we did all these different things, but it was transactional. You came in, we did the event, it was awesome, and we'll see you next year. And that was it. There was no other interaction necessary,
No, I mean, that's such a busy place too. There's literally a breakfast, a lunch, a dinner, an overnight reset. I mean, that's a crazy place.
It never stopped, but we didn't have that personal relationship with the client like that, like we do now, so but it's nice though. We have, and I call many of my clients close personal friends, and I've known them for so long, and it's a nice thing.
No, I can tell by your relationships with everyone, but just sorry to get off track here, but I guess our next step is like, what's coming next, right? And I know the way we're looking at it is the world's going to start opening up a little bit. I mean, look, Madison Square Garden is going to finally get to have people again. Yeah. Not a lot, but people, I mean, how do you think that technology is going to adapt, or how are we going to adapt to having both an in-person or a hybrid event at this point?
Yeah, it's a good question. We've been obviously talking a lot about it, because that is the next step here, right? So the good news is that we're going in the right direction, right? I mean, I'll speak for New York specifically, because we're obviously based here in New York, but even around the country, there are a lot of states are really opening up very nicely, as far as more availability to do events. So in the state of New York, we're now allowed to do 150 guests and or up to 25% capacity. So that's up from 50, which is great. So that allows, with a hybrid event, hybrid events a little bit different, right? It's a little bit, it can be a little bit funky, as far as how you roll it out. Because number one is you have really two audiences when you think about it, right? You have the live audience and the virtual audience. So you have to somehow, how do you meld them together where you have a good experience, right? So the experience itself can't be different for either one, right? But with the live event, if you have 150 people in a ballroom or a catering facility, what have you, something else has to continue moving forward, right? Because you have the virtual event, which maybe is 45 minutes to an hour. But if you're live, you can't just say, okay, guys, it's time to go home, right? You have to then continue, right? So that's the balance of the two. But the reality of hybrid for the next 12 to 18 months, I think that is part of our world. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think I think there's a lot to consider with the hybrid nature, and yeah, I mean, we're not going to be over this, like that. It's not going to happen that quick. Yeah. But this is the time that people are going to need a group like yours, I would imagine. I mean, especially with certain protocols and certain things that, like, you already know the rules. Well, they're not going to know that. Like, it's hard to keep up with this stuff every day.
It is.
So I would imagine that's going to be a pretty valuable spot to have you guys in.
Yeah, and we spend a lot of time. We really look at the website, New York State Gov website, to make sure we're up to speed on all the restrictions, and obviously the COVID testing, which is mandatory. Have to test negative for COVID, and we have to do temperature checks and all that kind of thing. So that's all standard protocol right now. But a lot of it though is really going to be, how do we communicate that message to the attendees prior, right? We don't want to have guests showing up and say, okay, I'm here for whatever it might be, whether it's a social event, a wedding, bar mitzvah, whatever it is, or a corporate event or nonprofit. We don't want them showing up saying, okay, I'm here, and we have to send them away because they don't have a proper documentation for a COVID-19 test or whatever it might be. So communication is one piece of the puzzle, and we've worked with the organization directly on that as relates to, putting out a nice, communication piece about, okay, here's what needs to happen. There is no gray area, right? It's not, well, hey, you know what? We'll let you slide this time. It's not possible, because then
I can't tip the guy $20 and get in. Is that?
Yeah, you can maybe go in the back door, but that's about it. But because if you were to do that, then you're accepting that responsibility and liability for that guest. If they were to infect somebody else, you're taking that on your shoulders, which obviously you don't want to do, and the venue doesn't want to do that either.
No, I don't think anybody wants that problem.
Exactly. So the coordination piece is really important for the attendees coming. The catering piece is the catering piece, right? It would be like a regular event, but what we normally recommend is, as the guests arrive, they get settled, ready to go. Give them like a half an hour window or so to kind of assemble, right? And do that. Maybe if it's in the evening, maybe it's a very light cocktail party with past hors d'oeuvres, something very light and simple, whatever it might be. Or if it's morning, do a cup of coffee and what have you. But allow them to gather live, and then you would then have them sit down and watch the presentation, be part of the presentation. Then you would do the live stream and bring in the virtual attendance, right? So it kind of comes together seamlessly. And then again, you would run a program just like you would run a normal program. Like we've done thousands of events together, you and I, same thing, but you're now streaming it as well live, to the audience. And then once it's now complete, you would then have your closing remarks. Of course, again, those of you who are not with us here live, we wish you were here live, but thank you for joining us. And we'll talk very soon. That stream will then close, and then you go to the dinner and serve a normal dinner, entertainment or whatever you might do, something like that. You wouldn't keep the stream up for that because, unless you had like a really great band or something like that, maybe you can leave it.
Right.
You would probably shut that down. And so really you're looking at two separate pieces that would come together. It works. We've done it. It's going to be our world. There's no doubt about it. For our catering friends, Joe, in the hospitality sector that have been so, dramatically impacted by this, it's a great thing. And we're going to do all we can in HRG side to promote live events. Albeit 150 people, that's our max number. It's going to keep going up for sure as the numbers trend down in New York and certainly around the country. And as the vaccine obviously takes hold, it's going to continue, moving forward, which is great. But we need to support our local venues.
Absolutely.
They've been hit so hard, and we love them all, and they had done such a great job. And it's critical. And the hotels, as you mentioned, I'm on the board of the Hotel Association, and the impact to the hotels in this area is just incredible, So we're hoping it comes back. We're optimistic. We have to be optimistic. We don't have a choice. We didn't ask for this, but we have to deal with it.
No, you're right. But I think you're looking at it the right way, and you're planning ahead. You're working within it's like any game, right? You need to know the rules of the game before you can play. Right. And I think you're keeping track of the information, and this way you can advise your clients and the hotels and everybody else, really, because you're involved with so many different groups.
Exactly.
But you're able to then advise them, and then we can form a plan.
Yeah.
As people, as a unit, as a town, as the community, right? Because you got to start.
Yeah.
And we're at the beginning.
Yeah. And one of the things, honestly, Joe, that I'm concerned about, and this is really more on the corporate side of our business, is, the compression. Right. Once that valve is finally opened up a little bit more, everyone's coming out of that gate full speed, looking to book venues. And we do a lot of hotel contracts. We're booking, 22, 23, 24 already, that, which is normal for us. But 2022 is going to compress big time, and the hotels are going to sell out, and then the prices are going to go up a little bit, and it's going to be a challenge. So we're trying to really, let our clients know, if you're thinking about something in the fall of 21, let's at least talk about it, right? Let's not wait until July 1st to talk about October 1st, at least start the process of conversation, what it might look like, what it could potentially look like. And then, because it's going to be sold out, and once they're going to say, okay, let's do it, we're going to get pushed away because there's not going to be space available.
Yeah, I know. I've heard, because we have, several younger guys that are making transitions in their lives. I know they've been trying to book wedding spaces, and that's a whole nother animal itself, but which I don't really get involved with. But but the fact is, 2021 is already booked because everything from last year got canceled and pushed. 2022 is already almost booked.
Big time.
Like it's a whole thing. Yeah. And we talk about it because on a local level, a number of our hotel friends have taken, terrible hits. And I know that we've lost 3 of the largest ballrooms in the area. Those are things that typically we spend all of our time with 500 people. So
correct.
I look ahead and I go, well, 500 people can only go to a few places.
Yeah, no, it's
what's that going to mean my setup time is going to look like?
Yeah, no, it is, but they're going to have to keep flipping rooms and all that. So that's actually a great point with the Hilton Westchester closing, obviously Doral Arrowwood closing, and then the Ritz-Carlton now closed and doing the renovation and such like that. So that's a huge inventory hit, no doubt. no doubt.
Yeah, and I know it'll get figured out, but it's going to take some time. And I have a feeling that you're right, that 2022 is where the crunch is really going to come in.
Yeah.
Because by that point, we're thinking everybody's going to be vaccinated. We're in a more of a free environment, I guess, than our current status, but either way, I don't want to sound too negative. I think that's incredibly positive.
No, it is positive. Saying my point is for the clients that are out there that are thinking about these events, don't wait. It doesn't behoove you to wait. I'm not saying necessarily sign the contract and execute it, but at least go down the road of what it could possibly look like. Do a mock P&L on a hybrid event, saying if we go down this road, what could it look like? Because obviously you want to have it where you can get to the right people and get that communication out there. I mean, the advantage of virtual, obviously, is you get this digital, file, this digital asset that you can use in your marketing communications and going out on social media, all that. So looking at the positive aspects of all of that is what you want to do. You're exactly correct. It is what it is. You can't change it, but just look at what you do and how do you best maximize that.
No, I mean, it makes sense. Look, both your work and our work is all about results.
Yeah.
Right. That's why people hire you. That's why they hire us.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess, how do you think that groups should go about measuring results in our current environment?
Yeah.
It's a little different, right?
It is. Yeah. No, it's a good point. And so a couple of things, whether it's, fully virtual or hybrid or whatever it might be, doesn't matter. The results are the results, but it's critically important to know going into the event what the expectation is and making it realistic for that particular event, right? So regardless of what the expectation is, you need to know what it is, right? And the board has to buy off on it and know that this is our goal, both on the gross line and the net line, if it's a nonprofit, or if it's a corporate event, we're looking to roll out our new training program to all of our employees, whatever it might be. You need to know what that is going in, and it should be in writing, and it should be communicated to everybody, saying, "Hey guys, this is our goal," and you might have to adjust that goal. It might not be our complete financial goal if you're in the nonprofit sector. Maybe it's financial. We want to make some money, some net dollars. But obviously, what really counts ultimately is what you net. So some net dollars, but then we want to also communicate our messaging to our constituency and saying we're still here. We're still serving our customers. We're still delivering food. We're still delivering childcare. If you're childcare counselor, we're still doing amazing work in that arena, whatever it might be. So that might be the goal. And so you have to figure that out ahead of time. The success of the event will just be literally commensurate to the effort put into it. That's the bottom line. Virtual events are not easy. There's a lot of work that has to go into it, and a lot of planning has to go in. But if you do it, then we're looking at, and we talked a lot about this, Joe, you and I and the team, this is a bridge to 2022, right? We don't want to be here, but we're here, right? But do whatever event you do, virtual, hybrid, regardless, let this be the bridge to 2022 into a more normal scenario. If you don't do the event, or you don't put the effort towards the event, you're not going to have that success. You might not be as successful this year as you were last year or 19 or 18, whatever it might be, but where are your successes coming from? And you should figure that out as a board, as a team, as a committee. And it's not only financial. We have clients that we want to raise $1 million. Well, great. Don't we all, right? How do you do that, right? It's like,
I'm not going to raise $1 million right now.
That's terrific, but you have to back into it and figure out, if it's not realistic, what can you live with? Right. And then what other benefits can you draw from the event commensurate to the effort?
Well, I think your point about this being a bridge is 100% accurate, in the sense that, because what if I don't do anything? And it doesn't matter if it's corporate, nonprofit, if it's a trade organization, association. If I don't do anything, isn't my audience going to go find another thing to watch or another thing to participate in? And is the money going to follow that?
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. And if you're talking the nonprofit sector in particular, yes, you have donors and sponsors and such that give either annually or a couple times a year, whatever it might be. and that money is budgeted for, and the corporations, whoever is doing it, foundations, whatever it is, it's in that budget. And if it's not spent, when they go to budgeting the next year, they say, well, you had that $25,000 earmarked for, feeding Westchester, as an example,
Right.
whatever it might be, or West Hab, or whatever it is. And it's not there anymore. You gave that money to somebody else. It's hard to get it back. On the corporate side, same thing. If you had a training meeting set up for for 150 people, for your new employees, or whatever it might be, orientation, or maybe it's a sales incentive, whatever, if that money's not spent, you might not get it back next year, because the financial team is saying, hey, listen, we didn't spend the money and I didn't see a huge impact for us. Let's take that money and put it somewhere else, or let's leave it in our bank account, because everyone obviously is running lean and mean right now. So you have to be very careful with that, no doubt. And listen, and maybe they gave you $25,000 last year. They give you $10,000 this year. That's great. Take it and deliver a great experience for them and say thank you. And then hopefully in 2022, you're back up to 25,000 again. But if you don't get anything at all, it's very risky. There's no doubt.
No, I agree 100%. I mean, you still have to perform at a high level, and you still have to make people aware of you. But to do nothing is not a good plan. I mean, you got to make progress. And I know for me, I like to feel that I'm making progress. And that's kind of what keeps me motivated and keeps me happy. And just like, if I was just sitting there, I don't know. I think I'd have a hard time. And that, from an organizational standpoint, same thing. I mean, really the same thing.
Totally agree.
But listen, Robert, this has been great. I'm trying to keep to our half hour because I don't want to tie you up too long.
I'm good. Thank you. This has been great. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it very much.
But everybody, you guys can learn more about Robert Sanders, Hospitality Resource Group. Their website is hrginc.net. They're on Facebook. They're on LinkedIn. Robert's everywhere. This guy, I'm even going to see this guy. I think I'm going to see him tomorrow on a webinar.
I think I will.
You're in high demand, I think. We got lucky today. We got lucky.
Well, thank you, Jim. I appreciate it. And your team, how I feel about your team. Your team is amazing. And, going to every single event, we come in with a huge level of confidence and feeling great about the detail orientation your team has. Your guys are great. And, and we have to set up that basketball game sometime soon.
I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait to get out there. Plus, that means it'll be warm out again. And we won't have so much snow. So, but either way, listen, Robert, thank you very much for your time today. It's very much appreciated. We're gonna get some follow-up tips for everybody from our great discussion, and I'll be watching you online tomorrow.
That sounds great. Awesome. Thank you, Joe.
All right. Take care, Robert. Well, so just to quickly summarize everything that Robert's been on. I mean, 40 years of experience. That's what you have right there. You're talking about going through hard times all through, the different periods that we've had. When I looked through some of the things that Robert said, was like tech really saved the day. It allowed, him to do something different, allowed his clients to do something different. He mentioned about still being engaged to the audience, but you just have to compress the time, right? Because people just aren't going to sit for 4 hours long. Using tech to help grow your relationships. It's kind of an interesting benefit that he mentioned. That then all those relationships you have, they're not wasted. You actually can expand on them now. That's kind of an interesting point. We go down the line, staying in front of people, just trying to raise awareness, just be out there in front all the time. When we get to the discussion about hybrid, and what does that mean? Look, hybrid is two audiences, right? It's in person and it's online. So you're combining today with, which was our today a year ago. But in person, online, but you have to keep them both engaged. And so how are you going to do that? Well, you need to start by communicating the proper information. That's a tip that's coming real soon. As all of our states open up, you need to make sure if there's testing that has to happen ahead, you got to make sure that's communicated to people. You don't want people to show up and be turned away, and you don't want anybody to have to go through that. So it's a really good point about things that need to be planned ahead. As we continue the hybrid discussion, having time for people to gather and do the in-person stuff first, and then bringing the online audience into the program. And then maybe there's something else afterwards for the in-person audience, but then we're going to take out the online audience. I thought that was a really good idea because you have catering, and catering is very a different experience for people online, right? Unless they're getting a meal, you probably don't want them sitting there watching everybody eat. So great tip, Robert. And then we go down the line, just again, think about those two audiences and how they're going to experience the event. And another great tip, right? 2022 could be major compression on dates and prices. Might be a good time to start discussing those things. And I know of a good event planner right there at hrginc.net. So let's finish up here. Think about your expectations. Are they realistic? Make sure everybody knows your expectations. I know that's a common challenge in the corporate world, making sure everybody knows the expectations. And last but not least, just keep active. Okay, this is a bridge until 2021. Don't let people forget about you. It's hard to get those audiences back. Doesn't matter if it's corporate or an association or nonprofit. You don't want to lose them. So keep them engaged, keep active, keep out there in the world. And, that's, I'm just looking through to make sure we don't have any comments that I might have missed. But this has been great. Look, we're about 8 minutes over, I think. I think about 38 minutes at this point. We want to make sure everybody can get back to work and do their thing. So listen, everybody, have a great day. Thanks for joining, and we look forward to seeing you next week.